What's going on, everybody? As seen by today's title of the video, we are going to be installing the RR Racing crank pulley damper kit and pulley combo. We're going to head on over to the shop now and begin the install. But first, let's get a cold start. I always love the cold start in this car. Out of 10 would not recommend to rev while cold. Let's head on over to the shop now and pick it up from there. So this is what we are installing today on the IS500. The crank pulley damper with the pulley combo. Got some instructions, and we also got this tool kit here that is made for the crank here, so that way when we tighten, it does not spin. Let's get into it. So our first step is to remove the engine cover, the intake box, hoses, and then hopefully slide up the coolant tank to get enough space to reach the water pump pulley. And then we're going to move on to the secondary small pulley and then go underneath the car and do the crank pulley next. Now with the intake removed and the hoses pulled off, we just have to locate the tensioner down here, take the belt off, remove the coolant tank with that one clip there, second clip here, move the hose. There should be enough space to remove the water pump and then gain access to the second pulley before going underneath to doing the crank pulley. Now with the coolant tank removed, we're going to loosen up the bolts off the scavenge pump and the water pump, remove the belt, and then work on the bottom portion. Now we need to remove the undercover tray. They're all held on by 10mm bolts. Right now we have an extension jammed in there, so so that way it's showing right here, and we're gonna try to loosen it. The old crank pulley removed next to the new one. It's a lot of difference. Crank pulley removed, putting a new crank pulley damper in. We had the extension rest somewhere here, and when removing it jumped the crank pulley out. Alright, so we went ahead and marked the pulley so that way when we guide it in from the side we can make sure we find the slit for the keyway better, because otherwise if you're just installing it sideways, now all you see is the roundness.
We need some more. It needs to go more, one end more.
Yeah, almost. Alright, so we went ahead and added on the little assistance piece there and put a bar on here so it's holding onto the frame when we tighten it. That way there's no risking the oil filter housing on this side. It's just way too risky, so our method was to place it like this at this angle with this bar. That way it's resting against the frame when we tighten it. So that way you can ensure that nothing's damaged on the engine. We went ahead and tightened it already and it's perfectly flush as seen underneath.
$60.
Hold on, does that 250?
$250. So they said $242. Ready?
Yep. This is the safest way we found to tighten the crank bolt. Look how easy it is. Moves freely. Doesn't risk breaking the oil filter housing. It's a way better option than what they recommend. Now we installed this part back on here, and we are going to reinstall the undercarriage tray. Then we are going to move to the top and reinstall the belts as well as the fuel intake and the intake box. Belt reinstalled. Now we're tightening the bolts on the pulleys. Now the coolant tank is reinstalled, and now we just have to install the intake, and we are done. Now we're doing the first startup to make sure everything's good. Sounds good to me. We're gonna go ahead and check and make sure. We put the engine cover back on, and we're gonna start again and make sure everything's good. Now we're going to go for a drive to make sure everything sounds good, and hopefully we get improved performance. Alright, let's go ahead and put this into manual mode and test it out. See if we gain any power. I definitely did not expect these type of results. I'm pretty pleased with the product. Overall, it does look great, but the main aspect was if it actually functioned well. And you do definitely feel a lot more get up and go and more torque, since you lose some of that rotational mass from it being about 10 pounds or so. So definitely a great product, and I like the crank damper pulley, but I definitely have some other things I want to mention and notes before you may think about buying this product. I have to admit, when driving in manual mode, those downshifts do feel quicker and smoother, so that is a great addition to the little power gains you get with the crank damper pulley, along with the pulley combo, which replaces the Scavenger pump for a little bit larger one, and replacing that water pump pulley, which weighs a lot less than the original one. There's a pretty noticeable difference. Anyways, without taking up too much of you guys' time, during my installation process, we wanted to know that RR Racing unfortunately makes it seem more easy to install than what it really is. For example, when you are removing the stock crank pulley, they note you add a 3-inch extension. We were concerned about busting the timing cover and damaging the oil filter housing. So, as seen in my video, we put on that little piece that they include in the package to the crank damper pulley, but instead of adding the extension, we added the breaker bar on top of that little metal piece, and then when you put pressure on it, it leans against the frame perfectly, so you don't have to worry about the pulley spinning while you're tightening. I can admit that the parts are great quality, but when it comes to recommendations on how to install the parts, that's not the best way that you should be installing your parts. Alright, now for a brief little overview. So what I meant by what I mentioned before is this is the instructions they gave you with your parts. Referring to the pulley holder tool, right here, it's that little silver rectangular piece. That is what my dad and I used the breaker bar with and held it in place, so that way when it is up against the frame, we were able to tighten it up perfectly fine and not damage our oil filter housing and the timing cover down below. Other than that, that should be the only thing I have to know that's negative about the installation process. Everything else is easy nonetheless, and this is my note of what they included. I couldn't remember what the other pulley was. It was the Scavenge pump. Anyways, So we did not want to wedge a 3-inch extension in the pulley because who knows what you're going to be damaging behind the pulley. So when I was taking a look while my dad was helping me loosen the pulley, we were noticing how it was creating a lot of tension on the timing cover and on the oil filter housing. So the way we did it, we would highly recommend it because you're not putting your parts at risk on your engine. Overall, the method we did was a lot easier than what I've seen online and what they noted here. In conclusion, the installation was not super difficult. This is definitely a 2-person job, and I just feel like the instructions they provided just made the job sound so much easier than it really was. Other than removing the intake and all that, it was super easy, but yeah, like I said, that crank pulley damper that you added on, the only really difficult part was just getting that key angled and sliding on the pulley, and then getting it in place where it needed to be before tightening the crank bolt. Once you tighten up the crank bolt, everything else is easy from there. We have found this to be the easiest method when installing this product. We don't believe it's needed to go underneath the car to replace all the pulleys. You can easily take advantage of removing the intake here within 5 minutes, and also the coolant tank reservoir, and then just doing the pulleys from up top, and then doing the crank bolt and pulley in the bottom. Hopefully this video served you well and helped you in your process of installing or just seeing whether this product is good or not. Performance wise, I'd say it's like a 7.5 out of 10, 8 out of 10 in terms of power gains. It's hard to tell because it's such a minimal difference. What is most notable is that now it is about 5 pounds lighter than what it was prior. And I noticed the weight savings were primarily, of course, in the crank pulley, but the water pump pulley definitely had a lot of weight as well that I wasn't expecting. That Scavenge pump more or less feels the same in terms of weight, so it's really hard to gauge whether or not I did gain a lot of power or not, but the engine feels more free and seems like it revs up higher. I guess it's too soon to say. Now, since I just installed this today, I definitely want to give it some time and maybe wait about a month or so before I give a really in-depth review of whether this part is recommended by me or not. It seems too soon to really say right now, but it does seem like the engine revs freely easier and the downshifts are more smooth. But like I said, it's too soon to tell, so I'm definitely going to leave this video as is, and I'm going to follow up later in the future. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you guys have any questions or concerns, definitely leave them down below. I'll make sure to get to all of you guys as best I can, but hopefully this video served you well when it comes to your installation. I try to keep it as simple as possible without the BS. I don't want to make a 30-minute video for you guys to have to skip through it. Anyways, I hope you found this helpful for your 2UR GSE motor and was able to help guide you in your installation process. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you have any questions or concerns regarding the parts or anything else I've done to the car, let me know in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you guys enjoyed.